is about the responsiveness of once you're aware that there's a leak. And this is really important. This aspect of things costs you nothing. This should cost you nothing. This is free. There's no major investment that needs to be done here. It's about management, speed and quality repairs. So what are we talking about? Speed and quality repairs, it's about getting out there, getting on the valves, and getting this leaks repaired as quickly as possible. The volume of water that's lost is directly related to the leakage runtime. I'm going to say this about 5 times, 6 maybe or more during this. That's the upshot here. Tactics for speed and quality repairs, it's about minimizing leakage runtime. It's about management of leak awareness, location, and repair processes. Break it down into component parts and put critical path timelines for each aspect of this to reduce the volume of water that's lost. It's about measuring the leakage runtime repair. It's about looking at quality of materials and specifications. We've just kind of touched on this in terms of the connections. You have to follow that stuff. So that's the quality aspect, is to follow manufacturer's specifications for installation, repairs, inspection, along with the quality of bedding and compaction. All of these are component parts that if it's not done right, you'll be digging these things up in the future. It's just a question of when. And then particularly for metallic pipe, there's corrosion control and grounding issues may come into play that will accelerate corrosion. Very important in terms of dealing with any metallic pipe. The speed of repair, speed is responsiveness by the utility to complete the repair of identified leaks. And generally, this aspect of water loss reduction is an operational afterthought. You talk about it, but you really don't action it. It's an afterthought. Yeah, my leak guys go out to do the repairs, we'll find it, we'll get to it. Work order lands on the desk, it's there for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month if it's a small leak. It gets fixed, no one gets back to the leak guys to do back the recheck, because there's going to be another one around the corner in high leaking systems. How many? 2, 3, 4. I showed you the graph of repaired leaks and systems with high leakage. Large volume of water loss can be reduced by lowering the repair wait times, getting the work order done as quickly as possible. So what we've done in trying to manage this thing is looking at guidelines to set up on repair turnaround times for each type of leak. Service leak, they tend to take a little bit longer because of logistics, private property, access to property for repairs. Main breaks that typically turned around very quickly, within 18 hours or 1 day, typically. But if you're going to manage this thing and break it down by leak size and category, and if you start to assess how long leaks take to repair, you'll find some very interesting things. Do you have a standard operating procedure for each type of leak? Do you monitor how long it takes to find it, to fix it, to recheck it as a standard operating, and do you measure it? Do you report back in terms of quality control of improving the turnaround times? This is not about money, this is about management. And challenge the repair foreman on their turnaround times. If you ask them, if you challenge a work repair foreman, how fast can you turn around a service leak? If you say typically it's taking you 3 months to have it repaired, do you think you could turn that around quicker? And say, oh yeah. There'll be a yeah, but, and excuses of what we can do, but they'll actually offer up some very aggressive turnaround times. The question is, will they stick to it over a longer period of time, and will you manage the follow-ups in terms of looking at how long they're actually taking to repair those leaks? Small leaks, big leaks, turnaround time. To start to reduce and put a little bit of internal management tension in the system. It's about management doing checks and balances to ensure that everyone's following through on, if you will, the commitment of the turnaround time. Internal tension in the system is a good thing. Somebody's asking a question about how well you're doing and are you fulfilling the timeline. Simply ask the question. But how many utilities are actually doing that? In my experience, in being with 60 or 70 utilities, 2 or 3 are doing it. Most don't do it. It's one of those things you talk about, but it's difficult to actually implement and manage. It shouldn't be difficult, it just isn't done a lot. Quality of repairs is proper selection of repair materials, get good quality product, the proper working specifications, and deal with non-corrode metal fittings if it's metallic pipe. Check the pressure settings, particularly if you've got high pressure systems. Make sure it's spec'd properly. Manufacturer's installation procedures, adequately trained staff for repairs. It's interesting how many people you just throw into the trench and they don't know how to properly button up a service clamp. or to tighten up a flange, or quality control in the trenches from a safety perspective. So ensure that the staff are adequately trained for the type of repairs that you're doing. David talked about the specifications of butt fusing, but similar water taps or different connections on different types of pipe. You know, there's a skill involved here, and it's very important to ensure that your staff have that. An inspection of the completed repair, not just button it up and turn it off and walk away, but pressurize the systems, flush the systems, and ensure there's no additional leakage before final backfilling. And then there's final compaction at the end of the day. So again, coming back to managing leakage and losses is to manage reducing the leakage runtime. Again, leakage duration directly impacts the volume of water loss. And service leaks is death by 1,000 cuts. It's the international systemic leakage problem, leakage of joints and connections. If you saw the frequency of leakage that's occurring, particularly in smaller pipes, and I'm even more concerned when I hear David talk about the polyethylene issues about the break frequencies that are occurring there. Those are all on service connection leaks. So if you've got thousands of those leaks that are running for long periods of time, the volume of water is very large. It's a setup for David this afternoon in terms of stabilizing, controlling, and reducing system pressures. Very important in terms of managing leakage and losses. Increases in fluctuations and surges cause breaks. Plastic or metal pipe, it really doesn't matter. And you can reduce the re-breakage of mains and surfaces with pressure stabilization and pressure reduction. Very important components. So, cutting quickly to this. Total components of a leakage runtime, let's break it down a little bit. Awareness time, to be aware of when a leak occurs, and I'm speaking about unreported breaks. Reported breaks, they're showing up, you already know they're there. Unreported breaks, they haven't come up, is the average time it takes from the start of the leak until the utility becomes aware the leak exists. I'll talk a little bit about that. The location time is the average time it takes the utility to locate and pinpoint the leak for repair once you're aware of the leak. So if it pops up on a metering, you're aware of it. How long does it actually take for you to define the zone, deploy the leak detection guys, and get the pinpointing done? What's the period of time? Do you actually manage that time? Do you set a target for that time? What's the turnaround time of locating a leak once you're aware of it? This is where the DMAs will come in, the awareness flag. And what's your response time to go out to locate and find and pinpoint that leak? Should it be 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 2 weeks, 2 months? If you start thinking about that, it will help you actually start designing how big your DMA is based on your system and your type of pipe. The two start to come together in terms of planned leakage runtime, DMA design, and the types of leaks that you have in your system. It all fits together. It all fits together. And you can start managing and planning time of reducing leakage runtime by putting those components together. Then there's the repair time. The average time it takes for the utility to shut off, in some cases, or repair the leak after it's been pinpointed. What's the turnaround? That's a work order system. How long does it sit on the desk? 1 day, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months? How many times have you found a small service leak and you put some paint on it and you came back and it's there next year? Every utility I've been in doing leak detection work, I've gone back and I've seen old paint marks that haven't been dug up on leaks, service leaks, because they just haven't got around to it, or too difficult, or some other excuse. Leakage runtime, 365 days by 1,440 minutes times a flow rate of 5 gallons a minute. The number is in millions of gallons for each service leak, and there's hundreds of them in most small systems and thousands of them in big systems. Repair time. So the total leakage runtime, the volume of water that's lost, is the sum of the flow rate times the time, each component time. There's the awareness time, the locate time, and the repair time. This is if you're aware of the leak, isn't it? Awareness will be different between reported and unreported leaks. So let's have a look at the volume of water that's lost here. The importance of service leaks. If, an example, you've got a main break in the order of 450 liters per minute, and typically these will show up, and that's a high urgency, and the utility responds very quickly. You could be looking at something in the order of about 18 hours of total runtime. Awareness, locate, it's showing up on the road, and we deploy the crews all in the same day. Typically, most utilities are operating like this, and the total volume of water that's lost is 490 cubic meters. It's a lot of water. but it's a short runtime. For service leaks, for a public service leak, if it runs, if the flow rate is in the order of 13.6 liters per minute, it's a small service leak, they tend to run a lot longer. The awareness time, locate and repair time could be, and I think this is conservative, 30 days. Might take a week or two before you get for a service leak. The locate time, it's fairly quick. That's a shorter period of time. And the repair time, look, that's a low priority for us. It gets parked. So the run time now is 30 days at a low volume of water, but the total volume of water is lost is 587 cubic meters. Now, for some systems, you've got the private portion that's on private property, and those tend to run a lot longer. So in these cases, where a typical service leak on private property, you may have an awareness, same flow rate of 13.6 liters per minute, and I'm being conservative here, you might be looking at 91 days or 180 days of leakage runtime. The awareness time will be a lot longer, the locate time takes a little bit longer, and the repair time, because of the coordination with private owners or whatever, can be an extended period of time. And in this case, I'm saying 91 days is pretty good in many utilities, in most utilities. If you look at the volume of water that's lost is 1,782 cubic meters of water for a service leak that has low priority in utility. How many of these are going on? Hundreds in most utilities for extended periods of time. So the upshot of this is it's really all about the leakage runtime. If you've got big water and a high priority, you can reduce the volume of water that's lost by time management. But the smaller leaks that continuously run can rack up to huge volumes of water, and they're actually receiving a low priority on behalf of the utility. And this is where the systemic leakage problem comes from. It's the runtime of these types of leaks. So if you just look at the volumes of water and flow rates, it really is all about the runtime. It may not be able to affect too much in terms of the number of leaks that occur in a system. You can't stop them all. Dave will talk a little bit about pressure management, our ability to blunt, if you will, leak occurrences with some pressure management and stabilization. You can't eliminate them. But what you can do is limit the amount of runtime. And this is key in terms of getting your arms around reducing overall leakage in your system. Let's have a look at unreported leakage runtime and loss. Again, volume of loss is the flow rate times runtime. And if you're unaware of unreported leak, we mentioned earlier, this is the backlog of leaks. For whatever leak size you have, it could be 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 months, 6 months, and I've estimated in some areas because of the level of sustained losses over long periods of time could be running for years, up to 10 years or more. Some of them have been leaking since day one, and you just find them way down the track. What do you see? Black gravel in the hole, water getting into sanitary or storm sewers or into ditches or streams. Down at waterfront areas is the favorite, coming out of the wharf that's going out. Never surfaces. It just runs. So this is key. If we look at the unreported leakage runtime, this unreported leakage runtime, that awareness component is really about it's unreported, and that's the backlog of leakage that we're talking about that is fundamental and large in a system with high leakage. You've got a lot of this. And that may run for periods of time. Once you're aware of where it is, then you can start controlling the locate and repair time. So you can start to manage the back end of that. But if you don't know where to go, you're just running volumes of water that are lost. The idea behind the SCADA system is to get the SCADA and DMA or step testing to reduce the backlog of leakage runtime, to find out where it is so that you can start managing going out and find out where it is under locate and get the repair done. So the techniques we'll be following up this afternoon will be the DMA and the leak detection skills that will come to address the backlog of leakage. Administrative work order systems, I'm just going to walk through this quickly. It's after location. How long does it take for the repair? Review your processes to expedite the repair coordination for crews and or contractors. Each utility is different. You may have your own staff. You may outsource. You may have another department or another division that's involved with this thing. The coordination, even within a same utility with different divisions, if it's fractured in terms of your organizational structure, you will not be able to get the turnaround time because it's a low priority. They're responsible, but you're accountable. And you can't direct the staff. So this brings us back to the organizational design and alignment to ensure that if you're trying to direct resources and to be accountable, you also have the associated responsibility for those repairs. Then there's the quality of the repair. So just going to break right along here. Servicing breaks, what is the timeline for turnaround? For repair response time for mains and services, you should kind of set some objectives to manage around so that you can start talking about response and keeping a little tension in the system to ensure that you're getting a better turnaround time response to lower leakage runtime. Take control of the locate and repair times to reduce losses. Very quick couple of graphs here. This is a utility I've been working with recently. You can see at the top here, high losses, and then starting the leak reduction program. But in the wintertime, we're starting to see creep up in the winter from December to March. And in Canada, it gets cold, crews don't go out, there's snow on the ground, and what happens? We've got longer leakage run times, and year in and year out, regardless if we've been able to lower the losses, we're getting increased leakage in the winter as a result of continued leakage runtime. So we put in place turnaround time response for winter operations, and currently right now this utility is operating down here. So what we've been able to do is sustain the reduction in overall losses even during the winter period where we're historically in Canada and in countries that have got deep winter conditions, you can respond and turn around longer leakage run times with a focused response on what you're doing and resource it properly. Response has a direct effect on reducing the volume of water that's lost. It's about the management. It should not cost you any more money. This is simply about setting priorities within the utility and managing the time and keeping tension in the system. Staff communication of where the leaks are underscores the importance of awareness, locate, and repair. And it sounds easy to do, but it may require operational and current practice changes, which is very difficult to do. That's the toughest part about this thing. It's the change. Thanks very much.